Hi everyone, thanks for coming on to the webinar and joining me. If any of you don't know me and we've not spoken before, I'm Beth and I'm a technical consultant here at Somerford Associates. So what we're going to be taking a look at today is understanding how Varonis can help with cloud security and giving an insight into how Varonis SaaS and Varonis DatAdvantage Cloud can help with your SaaS data. So this is the first of our webinars of our Varonis Cloud Security webinar series. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for the other webinars coming up as well. So specifically, we're going to be looking at how Varonis can help with cloud data visibility, governance, and compliance. So just to go through what we're going to cover today, firstly, we're going to go through a brief overview of what we do at Somerford Associates and who we are, just because some of you might not be familiar with us. We've got a brief overview of Varonis in general. I'm then going to touch on the threat landscape and some of the difficulties with protecting cloud data. After that, I'm going to go through some of the use cases so you can start to see how Varonis SaaS and DA Cloud can help with data visibility and access control. So we're going to touch on how it can help you to understand what sensitive data your environment holds, gain more visibility of who can access that data, and some of the autonomous remediation features and compliance. And then when we come to the end, I'm going to touch on the free risk assessments you can get with Varonis and Somerford. So who are Somerford Associates? So we're a leading provider of technology solutions and services, and we're also a certified platinum partner with Varonis. We're one of the go-to partners for expertise across some of the UK's largest companies. So that's across a range of different industries and even for government agencies as well. So as consultants, we're very customer focused and we understand both the business and information management challenges faced by organisations today. Our professional services team is comprehensively trained in every one of our solutions we offer and work closely with all of our customers to try and meet their specific requirements. We do also have an in-house support desk available for all of our customers to use as well. And usually any support cases that come through, we're able to solve most of these without the need to escalate any of these issues further to our vendors. So Varonis has helped many customers to monitor, protect, and manage their data. And Varonis SaaS and DatAdvantage Cloud is very much here to help in the same way with your cloud data. As we all know, more and more businesses, they're choosing to adopt cloud applications or services, and many of those are now storing a massive amount of data in the cloud. Often that does mean that organizations are struggling to know who has access to this data and what's actually stored in the cloud and how much of that data in there is sensitive. So this is really where DA Cloud and Varonis SaaS come in. So if anyone isn't too familiar with Varonis, just to tell you about what it can do as a whole first. So it looks at all of your data stored in your data cloud stores. So we're talking about data that could be in Microsoft 365, data which could be in Salesforce, Google Drive, as examples. So it takes a look at all of this data, and the majority of what's stored in here is unstructured data. So things like your documents, spreadsheets and files that we often don't know much about, and we don't actually know what's exactly in them, and we often don't know who's accessing these. And Varonis is going to help us to understand all that. In addition, Varonis looks at the infrastructure that helps us to access all the information in the data stores. So it's taking information from Azure AD, and it's taking a note of those users and security groups in their environment. So when you tie all this information together, so specifically we've got that information about the users and groups and their permissions pulled together, so we can understand and see who has access to what data. To add to this, Varonis can assist with remediating any overexposed data. So this really helps organizations when it comes to improving their visibility and awareness of who has access to what, and really help to reduce that overall blast radius. It can actually look at the content of your files. It's able to determine whether these are sensitive or not, and identify what type of sensitive data exists in your file shares. So when you combine being able to identify which data is sensitive alongside monitoring that user behavior and all of that access activity, then this can really assist businesses to ensure their compliance with things such as GDPR, for example. Alerts can be issued on suspicious behavior. Varonis has built-in alert models, and it also employs user behavior analytics. So we can actually start to understand what is normal behavior for users and service accounts, and then alert on any behavior which is unusual. And since the Edge module of Varonis has been developed too, it can even look at perimeter telemetry, so monitoring DNS servers, web proxies, and VPN access. So this all really helps with that threat detection piece. So to sum it all up, Varonis can help to detect insider threats, account activity, and user behaviors in your cloud data stores, and help you to gain a visibility on what data is sensitive and help ensure that this is locked down appropriately. So what can Varonis work with and monitor in the cloud? I'll just go through the list to sort of clarify that. So you can see on the slide here, we've got Google Drive, Salesforce. So Salesforce is a big one nowadays. A lot of organizations are using that. We've got Okta, GitHub, Teams. So Teams and Microsoft 365. So that's another big one that lots of organizations are using nowadays. And that does include Azure AD. So you can also see we've got the Slack logo on here, Jira, Box, Zoom, and AWS as well. So there's a lot of cloud applications and services Varonis can work with. And depending on which of these your businesses would need Varonis to work with, that would then affect whether you would need to purchase DA Cloud or Varonis SaaS. It's also probably worth mentioning that both Varonis SaaS and DatAdvantage Cloud are SaaS hosted solutions. So this means the deployment of them it's quick and easy, and we don't really require much from a customer to actually get it set up and running. So just to move on to the threat landscape now and some of the difficulties with protecting cloud data. As I was saying, one of the things we've seen is a lot of businesses, are deciding to make that change to a hybrid environment where they're using on-prem and cloud applications for their operations. Or some businesses, they're even switching completely to just using cloud now. And there is benefits to this. For example, it's been really great for making collaboration and working together remotely a whole lot easier, but it has led to a lot of IT and security teams having very little or zero visibility or understanding of who is actually accessing the data. So if you think about before, so when businesses were not using cloud storage, data would have been well secured, sitting within the network, on premise. There'll be all sorts of policies in place to prevent that data getting out of the network. But now, with a lot of organizations having moved at least some of their data into cloud storage, this means the controls are a bit more complex. So before cloud, we would see IT being the sort of gatekeeper for data, where an employee would be raising an IT ticket to access a certain folder in the data stores, and it would be IT or the data security teams controlling who has these permissions to access these certain files and folders. Whereas now, a lot of cloud repositories, often it's the users and the employees that are the ones who are controlling who's got access to that data. Often they can even send sharing links to external people to give them access to, edit the documents themselves. And unfortunately, if you're not watching too closely, then critical and sensitive data can be transferred to just about anybody. So this could be anything. It could be customer lists from Salesforce, or it could be even source code in GitHub, or sensitive documents in Microsoft 365. So it could be any type of critical information that could be getting out there. So with all these different cloud applications as well, it's also quite difficult for security and IT teams to understand the permissions within these. Some cloud apps have really complicated permission models and structures, and it can be quite a time-consuming task to even start to understand what these level of permissions actually mean, and what type of access does that actually give the employees, and what can they actually do with that data. Offboarding has also become more complicated for IT teams now. Previously, with your things like your Windows file shares on premise, users would be in a security group, and that security group would have access to files and folders. And if an employee was to leave, you would just remove them from the security group, and then their access would be removed. However, with multiple cloud applications, that means there's users having multiple cloud accounts, and it's quite often that it is forgotten about to deactivate all these different accounts for an employee who would be leaving. In fact, Varonis found that 3 out of 4 employees can still access their cloud accounts after leaving an organization. So that's potentially leaving critical information exposed to someone that's now external to the organization and no longer an employee. So just moving on to how Varonis can help. So for those of you who are familiar with Varonis 8.6 data security platform, you've probably heard of the data classification engine. And now Varonis have brought that same technology to work with your cloud data. You're able to classify your data, and it's able to tell you whether it is sensitive or not for cloud applications. Not only that, it can actually tell you how the data is sensitive. So it's able to tell you what type of data is held within your files. So that could be that it's GDPR in there, or PII, or whether something specific has been identified in the file, such as a national insurance number or a driving license number. That would be another example. So it uses patterns and dictionaries along with things such as proximity sensing to identify the files that contain the sensitive data. It comes with many predefined rules, which can either be enabled or disabled, and you can actually add custom rules as well, just dependent on your organization's needs. So why is it important to be classifying the data? Well, if you have an understanding of what type of data you hold in your environment, and therefore you know what is sensitive and what is actually subject to any regulations, that's going to really help you to understand and prioritize areas when it comes to securing the data and working towards that least privilege model. Varonis believes that securing a least privilege model is best practice when it comes to who has access to data, and making sure that only the right people have access to the right data. So not all of what we're going to hold is sensitive. So by classifying it, it's going to help you to understand where your priorities are and what needs to be protected and locked down first. So Varonis offers an easy to understand bi-directional view, which allows you to see who has access to which folders and areas of your data. You can see which security groups have access to sensitive folders and files, and the level of permissions as well. And you can understand how this access was granted. So if you see these permissions were inherited, so you'd be able to see they're inherited from a parent directory, for example. Varonis also comes with a series of dashboards too. You're able to find out information on these, such as how much of your data has global access configured. So by global access, we mean how much of it is exposed to anybody in the organization. And it's going to help you to understand which of these have been exposed to external users as well. So how much stale data exists can be seen in these dashboards as well. So you'll be able to gain an understanding whether there is data in your environment which isn't being used and potentially can be archived or deleted. So these dashboards can really help you to understand where to start when it comes to reducing that blast radius and locking down your data and reducing that unnecessary exposure. Varonis also normalizes the permissions from lots of different cloud applications and stores as well. A lot of cloud apps all have different permission models, and there's all sorts of different naming conventions and structures and combinations of access level. So as an example, if anyone's familiar with Salesforce and the Salesforce permission structure, you will know that it's quite a big task to just try to even start to get your head around this, because it's quite complicated. But Varonis normalizes these permissions by mapping these to a much easier to understand model. So they call this the CRUDS model, where CRUDS stands for create, read, update, delete, and share. So this means it's going to be a lot easier to understand who has access to what, how are they gaining that access, and what permissions do they actually have, and what those permissions actually allow them to do, as well as actually then being also able to understand what are they doing with that access and are they using it. So when you're able to answer these questions a lot faster, it's going to really help to successfully remediate and reduce that blast radius. Having data stored in the cloud often means that collaboration is made a lot easier by being able to share files and folders with people in the organization, and even external people too. So in Microsoft 365, collaboration links are what's used to make sharing documents a lot easier. So, but these collaboration links, they do come with a lot of risk. So it's often that there is sensitive information that's exposed to people it shouldn't be, and more of these collaboration links are created every day. So Varonis has autonomous remediation features which allow you to set up what they call ethical walls. So you can use Varonis to enforce any policies you might have around managing collaboration links in Microsoft 365. So as an example, you can set up rules to ensure that any collaboration links which are created to share data with anyone in the organization wide for sensitive data will be removed, helping to prevent sensitive data getting into the wrong hands. Varonis can assist with monitoring your compliance with cloud data. Many regulations such as GDPR have tight restraints on who can access data, that falls under the regulation. In a world where collaboration links exist and employees can give anyone access, it's obviously getting more and more difficult to keep a good eye on your compliance. So I mentioned a few slides back that the data classification engine in Varonis is able to identify which of your data falls under regulations such as GDPR. So Varonis has a specific compliance dashboard. So this provides high-level statistics surrounding your compliance. So it mentions things like which data is subject to GDPR, PCI, any overexposed financial data. You're also able to see more information by clicking on the panels in the dashboard, allowing you to see exactly which files are overexposed for those regulations.
So I'm actually just going to do a quick demo for you now, just because we've got a tiny bit of time to just squeeze it in. So this is a demo of the Varonis SaaS platform. So just to give you guys a quick look at the actual interface, if you haven't seen it already. So we've got the loads of different dashboards on the page. You can see here. So we've got SharePoint Online dashboard, OneDrive, got that compliance dashboard. Obviously, we were just talking about compliance, and you've got things like your file servers dashboard as well for if you are monitoring those on-prem file shares as well as your cloud data. So when you click into widgets from these dashboards, you're able to see more information. So you can see here we've got, you can see which type of sensitive data has been identified in these files here. So you can see we've got GDPR or PCI, or even passwords have been identified in some of those files. And then the other thing I just want to show you is how you get to those policies. So if you go to the management page and head to the policies tab, so this is what I was talking about when I was talking about those autonomous remediation features. So like removing those collaboration links in Microsoft 365, if there's any sensitive data exposed to external people. So I just wanted to quickly give you a look so you could see what the actual UI looks like.
I just want to mention the free risk assessments which we offer. A cloud risk assessment is a free assessment of your own cloud apps and services that Varonis and Somerford can provide. So many organizations are not aware of how much of their data in the cloud is sensitive or where it lives and who's got access to it. And this can really help to show specifically where your weaknesses are and make recommendations for minimizing your risk. These are available for both Varonis SaaS and DA Cloud. And essentially what this is where a DA Cloud tenant or Varonis SaaS is linked up to your cloud apps and cloud stores. So it can then watch your environment. And after the assessment, so usually after about 14 days, a report will be generated. And this is going to provide you with some information about your environment and highlight some of the risks and basically what Varonis has found. So you can see on the slide here, we've got some examples of the information you might see. So how much of your data is sensitive, or how much of your data has been shared with external users, for example. And also throughout this time as well, you'll have access to the Varonis incident response team. So basically what they do is if any attack crops up, so a real life attack crops up during your risk assessment period, they'll actually work with you to try remediate that real attack. So as I already mentioned, the assessment, it is entirely free. And because these are SaaS solutions, I did mention earlier, they're really quick and easy to get them set up and linked up with your cloud application. So if you are interested in Varonis, it does make sense to take advantage of getting a free risk assessment, so you can really see the value that Varonis can provide you with and those recommendations to improve your security posture. So if this is something you're interested in, please do get in contact with us and we can look at getting something set up for you. You can email us at info@somerfordassociates.com, or you can register for a risk assessment on our Somerford Associates website, and someone will get back to you. So that does bring us to the end of the webinar. It looks like we haven't had any questions come through. Hopefully most of you have found this useful and have got an understanding of how Varonis can help with securing your cloud data. If you do think of any questions, or if you'd just like to find out some more information, feel free to get in touch with us by emailing us at that email address. So that was info@somerfordassociates.com. But that's all from me. So thank you very much for listening, everyone, and hopefully you'll tune into our next webinar in the series, where I think we're going to be taking a look at Varonis SaaS and how it specifically works with Microsoft 365. But that's all for today, so thank you very much.